Hi, I'm Shayna, and welcome back to the PCOS Life, where we talk all things PCOS. Today, we have an interview with Tianna. She is the hormone coach, or Love Served Warm, on TikTok and Instagram. She has a bunch of followers, and I can't wait to hear about her personal story, but also how she helps the PCOS community get their hormones under control. So let's jump right into it.
Hello, I'm Tianna, founder of Love Serve Warm. I'm a master's prepared registered nurse as well as a PCOS hormone coach. And my passion is helping women learn to reverse their PCOS symptoms naturally without the use of birth control or restrictive diets.
Can you tell us a little bit about your personal PCOS story?
I've always had a family history of PCOS. My mom had PCOS. She had ovarian cysts that required one ovary to be removed. And I was a registered nurse working NICU, labor and delivery, and well aware that I had PCOS, but doctors never gave me any sort of medical advice to manage it. It's something that I didn't even learn about in nursing school. So I never really gave it much thought. And I just always assumed that when it was time to have a baby that I would because I deliver babies for a living. I just thought I was that girl, like superwoman. And after I got married, I got pregnant relatively quickly, and I was cramping and experiencing a lot of symptoms, but my doctors were gaslighting me, like, "Oh, you work in NICU, so you're just like paranoid." And I'm like, "No, like I think something's wrong." And at 6 months pregnant, I actually lost my first son, Logan. And when I went to specialists, they said it was most likely related to like my very low progesterone levels. And after losing the baby, I learned that not having a monthly cycle, I virtually had no progesterone, that there were progesterone supplements that you could take, suppositories, all of these things. And there were all of these resources available that I was never made aware of. So,
Mhm.
um, I lost another pregnancy thereafter, but in learning, when I got pregnant again, I was able to finally advocate for myself and say, okay, I need progesterone. I need, I was on top of it with my hormones and I was able to conceive my son naturally. However, people don't talk about this, right? I was expected to go right back to work delivering babies. And I was just like, so broken for some time thinking, oh my God, if me as a medical health professional that I work with specialists, IVF specialists, labor and delivery doctors, neonatologists, and no one knew or there was no resources, then what do common women that don't have the medical knowledge and the access to these resources, how do they put themselves back together? So I really went on a mission to create a corner in the internet where I could serve Love Serve Warm. And it's been a crazy ride, but that's really how it started, was through like my own loss and my own grief and not being able to find the resources, the knowledge. It felt like gatekeeping in a way.
How did you, like you said, it was hard for you to go back. How were you able to go back into that same field, into doing the same thing that you've been doing with this now newfound awareness?
I went back and I was really heartbroken. I got diagnosed with PTSD. I fell into a depression. I developed anxiety. And I really started to, like, at 6 months pregnant, I lost the pregnancy, but I still had all of this weight on me. And then spiral, added with the depression and anxiety, I just began gaining more and more weight. I just began ballooning. And as I began gaining so much weight, my PCOS symptoms spiraled out of control. And it was really at that time where I was just like, oh my God, I've got to do something. Like, I have to like live, I have a special needs sister who, at the time she was on trach. She had a tracheostomy. She was vent dependent. She's fed only by G-tube. My mom had her, complications related to her own hormone imbalances. So I was just like, man, I have to put myself in a position where I can take care of them because they need me. And I started to research and learn that there is so much information about PCOS and just no one's talking about it. And more specifically, I started to learn how it affects disproportionately women of color. And we have the most aggressive symptoms. And I'm just like, I was literally blown away working for one of the best top hospitals in South Florida. I've delivered celebrity clients, celebrity babies. And it was just like, wow, I'm at one of the best hospitals and still no one was talking about it. I couldn't get the resources. So once again, I had to leave the bedside. I won't even lie about it. I still worked with women's health, but I went into kind of like chart auditing and things of that sort. I have a master's in medical health law and research. So I used that to go ahead and get a different degree, but I mean, a different job. But as I did, and as I was researching charts, I started to, and I was more hyper vigilant. I started to see the signs, and I started to see that so many women that would come into NICU actually had all the signs. It was no surprise that they were in NICU. It's like, you're suffering from this hormone imbalance. Let's put you in IVF. You need 6 rounds of IVF because this is what's going to make it better. And I'm just like, this woman hasn't had a period her whole life. She's had a high egg reserve, like, and you gave her IVF. And it just became more and more, it just became more and more obvious that our healthcare system was really reactive instead of proactive. And it was because it's private, it's not always based on what's best for the client. Sometimes it's based on creating these lifelong customers. And I hate to say it that way, but it was just like such an eye opener. And that's when I really like was like, when COVID hit, I was like, oh, I'm gonna dive into this like really deep. And I left, my job. I got pregnant with my daughter, and I knew exactly what to do. This time I knew what to advocate for. I knew that I needed progesterone. I knew that I needed some, injections to prevent preterm labor. But even with having all of the knowledge,
Mhm.
it was still an uphill battle against insurance, even my history of losses. And I was just like, I need to use this information to educate other women because this isn't fair. And in a lot of ways, the healthcare system felt like to me what police are to Black men. That's what I felt like the healthcare system was to Black women. It was a system that silences you, that gaslights you, that makes you feel like you're literally crazy when your body is failing you and you have all of the signs and symptoms present right in front of you, yet no one wants to believe you and give you anything other than birth control or IVF.
There's so many stories of neglect, so many stories of refusals to be diagnosed, refusal for treatment. So what do you I didn't kind of give like a background if you want about some of those experiences you've had with, your clients or what you're kind of seeing. And then also if you have any advice for those people who are experiencing that. What can they do when they go to their doctor's office because they're concerned about PCOS, and how can they be heard?
First thing is definitely noting that we have a private healthcare system that prides itself on profit, right? Doctors get a kickback for prescribing certain medications, right? So it's not always in their best interest financially to help you learn to alleviate your symptoms naturally. And I think that's the first part of understanding that, like, no one is coming to save you, and you have to kind of like do it yourself. The next thing is, I think it's body literacy and body advocacy, right? Becoming aware of what is the criteria for PCOS. So many women come to me and say, I was tested for PCOS and I came back negative. And I ask them, I say, yeah, what was the test? Because as far as I know, there's no diagnostic test for PCOS. They go, I have facial hair. I haven't had a period in over a year. I'm gaining weight, but my doctor says I'm fine. And my labs came back normal, you know? And I feel like one of the things that COVID has shown us is that the pool for medical testing is not diverse, right? They were scratching at the walls trying to get people of color to participate in this medical testing. And because of our nation's history with the medical system and people of color, no one was up for the challenge. So we have to understand that when they say your lab results are normal, that comes from a lab subset of people that lack diversity. So what they say may be normal is not normal for women of color, right? Because obviously women are experiencing the symptoms despite the lab results always coming back as normal. So I think that's the first step, is really educating yourself on what is the criteria for being diagnosed with PCOS so that you can advocate for yourself at the doctor's office. The next one is making sure that your doctor is a PCOS specialist, not someone who treats PCOS on the side, and really getting together your questions. How often do you treat women with PCOS? What is your common treatment plan for women with PCOS? How do you help women with PCOS with natural alternatives? Like, really get down to the nitty gritty and understand that you are in the driver's seat. You hire this doctor and you can fire them just as well, right? I know that some people don't always have the means to switch doctors so frequently, but if a doctor is gaslighting you, not making you feel seen or heard, then the treatment that you are likely going to get is not going to be in your best interest, right? The next thing is women often go to an OBGYN for PCOS, and there's no problem with that. But if you are not interested in having a baby, and more specifically, OBGYN's job is to focus on reproductive health. And the reason why PCOS doesn't get the funding that it deserves is because it's labeled as a reproductive disorder, when we know that it's an endocrine disorder, which means it affects your whole body. So my other advice is to go to an endocrinologist, a doctor who specializes in hormones, not an OBGYN, unless you are specifically trying to have a baby. But even then, I always recommend to get down to the root cause first before trying to have a baby, right? Women with PCOS are something like 2.2 times more likely to have a child with autism, right? And that's linked to the gut health, right? And there's new research on this. So first is like getting to the bottom of all of that, getting to an endocrinologist, getting to a psychiatrist, right, or a psychologist, right, because a lot of women with PCOS experience mental health issues, right, and really creating like a team of doctors who will truly support you and advocate for you, and not, like I said before, not being afraid to fire a doctor and start all over again, because you have to do what's in your best interest.
Okay, so we kind of touched on this a little bit, but how do you feel PCOS specifically affects people of color differently?
Great. So that's a great question. So PCOS affects women of color disproportionately. There's many factors. One of them is that women of color, due to the history, and not even that far back, the Tuskegee experiment, right? And I may have mispronounced that, but not even that far back. So because of that, women, especially women of color, are less likely to seek the help that they need. So women of color are more likely to experience the most aggressive symptoms, and with that being said, they are the least likely to seek care. So the first thing is making yourself a priority and not being afraid to find the support that you need. And in addition to that, women of color experience the symptoms of PCOS more aggressively. So one of them is facial hair growth. I'm not saying that women who are not of color do not experience facial hair growth, but it is nowhere next to the magnitude that women of color experience facial hair growth, chest hair, right? These are symptoms that affect women of color the most. Not only that, because you recently had cancer, but women of color are more prone to get breast cancers and other cancers. And when they get them, they get the most aggressive forms. And it's no coincidence. This is because products that are marketed to women of color are highest in parabens and other hormone disrupting, issues. Perfect example is honey pot, right? The brands usually they get a little bit of clout, right? Brands for that are marketed to women of color. And once they get a little bit of clout, they are bought out by other companies. And what happens is their main goal becomes increasing profit margins. And they do that by sacrificing the ingredients and swapping them out for more toxic, harmful ingredients so they can increase those profit margins. And what women of color don't fail to understand, and is most likely because they're not taught, is that your skin is your largest organ in your body, right? So whatever you put on your skin goes directly into your bloodstream, right? So we're talking about edge control. We're talking about the hairsprays that we use to lay our baby hairs right. We're talking about wigs. It goes so deep. Facial products, right? So we really have to start paying attention to product labels, what we're cleaning our house with, right? Companies use sales psychology to market directly to women of color. I see it in the PCOS space all the time. Women who are not women of color, but they specifically use images and videos, and they're doing all the trends for women of color, but they don't understand the unique plight of a woman of color, right? But it's just a marketing trend. So women have to become more aware of who is marketing these products to you, who's the person behind most of the products most of my favorite products have been bought out by and whitewashed, right? And the ingredients change, but the front of the label doesn't change. So unless women are actively looking at the back of ingredients of product labels, they don't know that they are ingesting through their skin, their hair, their foods, very, very toxic ingredients. And it goes all the way back to slavery, women, people of color were given um the most fattiest parts of food, and so we have that culturally ingrained in us to eat these very, very fatty foods, that are not always good for us. And we have to learn not to restrict it, but how to create balance within our diet without taking away our cultural significance. So often when they tell Black and brown women to heal themselves, they don't understand the plight of a Black or brown woman. So it looks like endless kale salads and quinoa and all of these things, but we really have to learn how to still respect the culture and just create balance within the foods that we already eat. So it's really a lifestyle overhaul, right? It involves education and body literacy and body advocacy, you know. One of the major things with PCOS is menstrual dysregulation. Something like 80% of women have menstrual dysregulation, and the number one treatment seems to be birth control. And what I teach my clients is fertility awareness method. But if you go into fertility awareness method, there's not many women of color who even know about it, right? How we can track our hormones through our physical signs and symptoms and through a basal body thermometer that you can get on Amazon for like $15 to really like confirm and track ovulation. And I think that's one of the first parts that's so important is just understanding your body, understanding what she likes, what honors her, what makes her feel good, and then understanding if what you're doing each and every day is aggravating or improving your PCOS symptoms, right? Because ultimately the inflammation will lead to cancer, tumors, fibroids. And as women of color, we will get the most aggressive forms.
Yep. And also least likely to receive proper care. So,
And we will likely be gaslit, right? Sent back home, told us everything is normal until a lot of times it's too late.
yep. Yep. Can you talk a little bit about what a hormonal coach does, what that entails?
Definitely. So hormones are our body's messengers. It's almost like the brain communicates to our hormones and our hormones go out and do the work, right? So a lot of times, I say hormone because women don't know that the PCOS is a direct consequence of their hormones not doing exactly what it needs to do. One of the major symptoms that women experience is inability to regulate their weight. Not all women experience overweight. Some women experience trouble maintaining their weight. They're already underweight. Some women don't eat, right? They don't feel hungry and they're still severely overweight, right? And doctors are telling them to eat less and they're like, I already don't eat. So I compare it most to like an AC unit, right? That's your hormonal system. You live in South Florida as well. When we come inside, like, I don't know where your AC is set, so mine's is like a nice 65 degrees. But if I came in and my house was like muggy, the first thing I would do is check my thermostat. I'd be like, hey, it's like something's off, right? And it's the same thing in your body. When you're unable to regulate your weight, the first thing you have to understand is that your hormones are responsible for initiating hunger, for initiating fullness. And if you are not able to maintain your body weight, then you likely have a hormone imbalance. The same thing with facial hair, the same thing with our menstrual cycle. At the root of all of this is usually a hormone imbalance. And rather than focusing on lab results that 9 out of 10 times come back normal and don't really tell us much. We want to focus on the unique and individual symptoms that we're experiencing and try to pinpoint them back to specific hormonal imbalances and see how we can directly impact that hormone imbalance through nutrition and lifestyle.
Do you have an opinion about the pages on TikTok and Instagram or Facebook that generalize PCOS and give these generalizations of you have to go gluten-free, dairy-free, you have to do this one type of training?
Yes, I feel like the online space can be very predatory. And oftentimes, what is promoted is what's going to get the most likes, what's going to get the most views. And what that can translate in, especially for women of color, is that it can be a space where you feel overwhelmed, first of all, because you feel like I've got to eliminate all gluten, I got to eliminate all dairy. And it's not to say that it doesn't work for some people, but it's going back to learning about your unique needs, what works for your body and what doesn't. And you can only learn this through tracking your hormones, right? It's like Siri, and I have all the references in the world, but you cannot tell Siri to take you somewhere without it first being able to pinpoint your exact location, right? If you can't pinpoint your exact location, then Siri can't tell you where to go. And it's the same thing. PCOS coaches cannot tell you what to do if they don't know exactly where you are. So I always say what works for Felicia won't work for you. And supplementation, all of those other things are as personal as your bra size, right? It's unique based on your diet, your lifestyle. So the first thing, I feel like there are certain things that are common amongst most women with PCOS, but a lot of the recommendations are just based on what works for a unique subset of people. And it doesn't take into consideration that PCOS looks differently amongst many women, especially women of color.
What is it about your approach that gives results to the PCOS community?
I think it's the love.
Mhm.
I think it's the love. I have been there and I know what it feels like to be gaslit, to be made to feel insignificant, to be um, made to feel like you're making things up by your family, your friends, the people closest to you, just because of lack of understanding. And I feel like bigger than, I mean, everybody works for money, but bigger than the money, I feel like, you know, there's a quote that says, the wound is the area that the light shines through. And I truly feel like my son, Logan, had a purpose, and that purpose was that through that pain, I would help other women. So it's such a personal mission to me. And I feel like most people can feel that. They can see it when they get on a call with me. They can see that it's something that's very personal to me. And if I genuinely can't help someone, I will tell them that I don't feel like they're the best fit. So at the end of the day, it's not just about money, but about building a legacy, right? About really impacting women. And I'm hoping that, I'm raising a brown daughter, and I'm hoping that when it's her time to have babies, or even when she comes into a reproductive age, that I have created just a little dent, maybe a big one. But if just a little dent, then my heart is complete. And I feel like that translates from my reels and my TikToks, the authenticity, and that people can look at me and go, "Oh my God, she looks like me. She's going through what I'm going through. Like, she's not telling me that that I can't drink iced coffee, that I have to be on a kale smoothie diet." Like, and they can relate to that. And I think that that's one of the things that makes me unique and that really magnetizes people to my space.
To the people, to the women who feel lazy, right? Who feel depressed, who feel alone because they're going through PCOS. And there's not a lot of resources, not a lot of people talking about it. Healthcare professionals can't help them. And of course, like you just mentioned, even their family members and friends sometimes don't understand what they're going through. And so I know that that can create a very dark place, and a space where we feel very alone and kind of hopeless. And so I wanted to know if you have any words of encouragement for those people.
Yeah, definitely. I always tell my clients, never practice that toxic positivity, right? Allow yourself to feel all the emotions that you need to feel. And you don't have to put on a show for anyone else, right? If you're tired, admit that you're tired. Give yourself the grace that you deserve. And at the same time, you have to find your tribe. Right? That's the internet is amazing for that. Go on TikTok, go on, right? And find someone who looks like you, who you resonate with, right? And learn, learn about, your PCOS from someone that you trust, right? And if someone is generalizing and someone makes you feel like the uphill battle is too steep, then that's not the influencer that you should be following, unfollow the accounts that make you feel insecure. That is a form of self-care, right? Unsubscribe from all of the diet propaganda and the predatory spaces, right? And just really lean into your intuition. Let your heart be your guide. Find your tribe. And if your family and friends don't understand, then you have to finally get to a space where you can forgive them for their ignorance, right? Because we are in a society that's based predominantly on looks and weight, and our healthcare system has this messed up notion that health has some health has some particular size attached to it, so just be true to yourself and allow yourself to express your individuality. And those who don't understand, it's not your job to make them understand. It's not your job to educate them. You just need to do what you need to do for you so that you can be in the space to fight this, because PCOS is not a sprint, it is a lifelong marathon.
The last question I have for you then is just, I would love to share what's going on in your community right now. I saw that you're doing a giveaway. I also saw that you're doing an interview or a talk September 1st.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I'm doing an interview with Dr. Jalissa, and I apologize if I didn't say that right, who's a pelvic floor specialist on PCOS. Um, and just September is PCOS Awareness Month, so I'm just interested in connecting and collaborating with brands that have a mission focus on PCOS awareness. I'm giving away a free consultation with Lend. They're a group that support to PCOS, and as well as doing a free webinar, 3 secrets to reversing your PCOS naturally. And I'm going to be giving away a ton of PCOS swag and some other, free consultation and some other stuff, to really support my community and just thank them for their support. As I see you, the online space can be very vicious. And especially for women of color, it's like, other people are triggered just by us being online every day and speaking our truth. So you have to have tough skin to come onto this online space every day and speak your truth and fight off these, online bullies. So I just want to really give back and support those that support me by giving them a free night with me to hang out and really like teach them about PCOS and give them support and free stuff, and see what brands want to participate with me. So I'm still in the works with that, but the free webinar is on September 22nd at 6 p.m. There'll definitely be a replay, and I'm just excited to serve this community of women and let them know that they are not alone.
Yes, I couldn't agree more with Tianna. I think it is extremely exciting to be able to work with women who we can relate to, obviously having dealt with the same condition, but also who have had hardships with the quality of care they received in the medical industry. So I'm really happy that I was able to connect my audience with you, with Tianna. So make sure that you follow her on Instagram and TikTok. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, slide in her DMs. Leave all your questions down in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I love you all. Bye.